I'm Rick Lawley. I am a film editor and a founding partner at Whitehouse Post.
I'll just tell everybody, Rick and I have known each other pretty well for a long, long time, so not that that matters. Rick, well, I know what part I'll cut first. Rick, your company has offices in New York, London, Chicago, and LA, and you also have Carbon, a visual effects and finishing company, Scholar, which is a multimedia production studio with a design pedigree, and a live action production company, Capgun. And in normal times, that's a lot to keep an eye on. And how are you guys handling all of that stuff?
We're all just cracking on business as, business is unusual, but it's still business. We are chasing the same work as everyone else and coming up with a lot of the very similar solutions. So we've been doing some user-generated content spots. We've been reappropriating some old material. We've been doing found footage, editorial spots.
You and your partners employ and manage a lot of people in their first jobs and others with careers starting to take off. What have you noticed about the younger people and how they're handling this pretty unprecedented crisis?
I was just talking to one of our young editors in Chicago this morning, and he's just had his first kid, 7 months old. We launched him as an editor, I think, in the last 6 months, and I just feel so sorry for him. He was just hitting his stride, trying to get that momentum going. He just got back from kind of job in Mexico, and now the brakes are on, and it's really hard. It's really hard for this younger generation. I feel, I think that the millenniums get a really bad rap. They have been given a really bum deal, and I think this is the worst part of it. But if you've grown up since 2008 and been a witness to a financial crisis and the results of the 2016 election, and then this. It's a lot of stuff going on. We have kids who are living away from home, living in studio apartments, haven't been back since the crisis started, have barely been out of the places that they live. They're working from home. So, we call around and check in, and we try and keep the kind of culture of the company alive.
It's interesting that these kids grew up online. They're as familiar with the technology, or even more familiar than almost anybody. They may start to realize is that they don't have the human contact, and that may kind of reset their internal compass a little bit as they start to need that. It may become more important in their lives from now on.
But there's a real sadness to not seeing people and not being able to give people a hug and that sort of stuff. I call my mum more than I've ever done, but it's not the same not being able to reach out and go see her and stuff like that. It's weird.
As a small business owner, what have you guys had to do to keep the company afloat financially?
We went off to the government loans, same as everybody else, the PPP loan. We received our loan, so that's going to help us. Maybe the first month we just kept things as they were, but then we had to put in place a company-wide pay cut. We wanted to do that rather than do layoffs. So we have all taken pay cuts, based on our earnings. And it goes down to a certain point, and then people are like the runners and the juniors who aren't on the bigger salaries, they don't really have any changes. So we tried to shoulder the burden between all of us. And so far that is doing the trick. It remains to be seen how much longer we're out of work and how much longer we're sheltering at home. It's there's a small business owner, there's a lot of unknowns, and it's difficult to know where the business is going to end up. Not just our business, but the industry.
The White House has been recognized as a top editorial company almost since you opened in 1990. 30 years is an amazing run for any company, particularly in the advertising business. What has to happen, and when does it have to happen, for the White House to continue to be a successful global brand during this pandemic and after this pandemic?
First and foremost, we need to stay safe. We figured out all the protocols for if and when we do go back. But then it's really to do with, people's advertising spend. I just heard that at the upfronts this year, there was a 30% fall off in advertising revenue. And, we're going to feel that. There's going to be less work for us, all of us. And I guess the manner in which we approach that work, intelligence with which we kind of go after it, is what gives you some kind of a marginal gain over your competitors. And it's, that's just always been the nature of the business. So in that sense, there's no changes. We've been doing a little bit more work direct to client over the last year or two. I think we have to come up with smart production solutions. Last week we did a 3-day shoot using 3 different DPs. in different locations. And then we had our director and the agency and the client were all on Zoom, and they directed remotely at these different locations. And I just saw the cuts this morning and they came out great.
I've noticed this. Everyone's talking about remote capabilities, and almost every editor I know over the years has had some ability to work either offsite on a shoot or at home or on a plane. It's not really reinventing the wheel. I mean, how is your team set up right now?
We always had this really fast line joining us together, and we always had our own system whereby I could be editing on an Avid in Los Angeles, and I could have clients sitting in a cutting room in Chicago. So that was working great. I mean, the thing about it is that everybody kind of gets really focused. It's something about it makes people communicate very clearly. I've cut whole jobs on it that way. And so now we're just doing the same thing, but with Zoom.
In speaking to live action production people and talking about remote capabilities, everyone I've spoken to has said that shoots are going to take at least 25% longer. You sound like it hasn't really affected the time that it takes. And in some ways, it's made it more efficient to edit a commercial.
I mean, my experience of doing it in the past is that it went really well. It was super efficient. If anything, it was a little bit quicker.
And what do the clients think?
They are very interested in this new workflow, and I think it's raising a lot of questions about all sorts of things, from real estate to money. There's going to be implications from this.
When the shutdown began, it was widely believed that there would be a lot of recuts and repurposing of footage, and many of us thought the post companies would be okay. Has that panned out?
No, I don't think there's not enough of that work to compare to what we were doing in the past. I think there's a lot of reevaluating, and if the figures from the upfronts are anything to go by, there's a lot of repurposing of advertising dollars, and so that's having an implication, and it's going to continue to have an effect upon the industry for a while to come. I mean, I think the loss of sporting events in particular is a huge,
very true,
huge loss of advertising. You know, those live events where you get an audience, they stick with the broadcast and watch the adverts. That's a problem.
And we've lost some of the biggest sporting events of the year: March Madness, the Masters, in addition to the regular seasons and the NBA playoffs. You know, these are major investments for a lot of these companies at this time of year.
Yeah, I don't watch any of those, Bob, but I watch the Premiership in soccer in England.
Okay, we've lost the Premiership. Yeah.
And I'm in mourning, Bob. I'm struggling with it.
Golf is coming back. So your Sunday afternoon nap may be reinstated. I've seen a bunch of ads from companies somehow trying to align themselves with the consumers as, you know, being there for you, and we're all in this together in the pandemic. And there's a lot of sameness in these ads. To me, there's a lot of pandering in these ads, no matter how well-crafted they are. What kind of stories do you think would work well right now?
I don't like it when brands try and cash in on, or when they associate themselves, which is something bigger than advertising, and then stick their brand on the end of it. I think it's a bit of a dilemma. I mean, I saw, you know, some of the early commercials that came out during this time were, you know, there saw a couple of good ones, and then I started seeing the same themes a lot. And it's a tricky time for brands to find a voice and to find the correct way to express, you know, just express themselves, I guess. You know, I mean, the agencies have got to work out.
What are the 3 most compelling movies or shows you've watched this month?
Well, I just finished Normal People on Hulu.
Which you loved, right?
Yeah, it was really good. It was really good. I watched a little show on Apple called Trying, which was like a little British comedy about a couple trying to adopt. And I thought that was charming and funny. I subscribe to the Criterion channel, so I've been going back through some of the old movies on there and catching up with some of those old movies, some of which I've seen before. We were so depressed that we just watched a lot of Disney stuff together. It was funny. You know, we went back and watched. There was something about them. It was just like putting on. It was like getting a warm blanket. And I can see why, you know, during the Great Depression, people wanted to watch Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. You know, it's like there's a reason why entertainment exists sometimes, and it's to take our mind off things.
When you're watching a great story that someone else has done, do you look at the choices that the editors made?
It's a real-time annoyance for my wife. I think if you become obsessed with your craft at some point and you just start seeing it everywhere, you don't even see it in just film. You see it in music, you see it in architecture, you just see it in everything. And yeah, I drive her nuts. I'm like, that was the wrong place for a close-up. What's all this about? This is tedious. You should take this out. And I am capable of providing a running commentary that is not always appreciated.
Clearly, there's a little place in heaven for Alison Lawley. And
yes,
yeah.
She just told me to shut up. But her thing is continuity. You know, she's always like, I caught you out. Look at that continuity, and I just don't care about continuity. I'm like, continuity is not important, and so we have that discussion a little bit.
Is there any editorial work or a particular editor that's influenced your process or your work in the past few years?
No, there's some editors that I'm really super jealous of. You know, that I kind of look at their work and I'm like, damn. Unfortunately, some of them work for us, so that's good. So I've always studied other editors' work, and I think it's one of the ways that you learn and grow people's taste and aesthetics that I find really stimulating.
Does your mood influence how you edit?
It shouldn't. It shouldn't. It should be all about the content. You know, you're just looking for truth. You're just looking for something that resonates and feels authentic and is well conceived. And so, regardless of what day you're having, that search is everything. So I really like being on my own in the cutting room with a cup of tea and the door closed and some images to play with. It's just like it's my happy place, So I'm generally in a good mood when I'm cutting. Over the years, I've changed my process of working considerably because I think if you don't, you become stale. So you have to find new ways of approaching the work. And if you ever find yourself getting grumpy with the work, then it's you. It's on you. It's not the work. So yeah, I've often approached my work from a different angle and tried a different process just to kind of stay kind of alert and kind of relevant. But I think what happens is you've done it so many times that you have to reinvent your process so that it brings it. You get some adrenaline and some excitement. For the most part, I'm fairly chipper, I think, even after all these years.
And chatty?
Very chatty. I mean, it's been a thing, Bob. People have talked to me about, people have complained about it. And I'm like, well, that's who I am. I like stories. I kind of understand the world through stories. And so I do tell quite a lot of them.
And finally, Rick, what have you learned about yourself over the past 2 months that surprises you the most?
There's been some stuff that have happened here with my family that's been so great. We just had the best time ever, And I just learned about how much I love being with my family. And we've also been growing some vegetables. So I learned that stuff that you grow tastes really, really good. So I've learned that my happiness is pretty much attached to my level of acceptance about things. The first 2 or 3 weeks of lockdown, I needed to really kind of dig that one out because I kept wanting it to be over. I kept just wanting it to be over. This thing is going to be over in its own time, and not on my time.
Founding partner and one of the top editors on the planet at Whitehouse Post, Rick Lawley. Thanks for your time and your insights.
Cheers, Bob.
And sharing your feelings. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Bob. Bye.